Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are your guides, taking a stack of sources, research, and analysis to give you the most important nuggets of knowledge you need, complete with surprising facts and context. Today, we're immersing ourselves in the extraordinary trajectory of April Jeanette Mendez, known professionally across the globe as AJ Lee.
Yeah, and this is definitely more than just a wrestling career we're looking at. It's really a study in harnessing adversity, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Our sources reveal a woman who faced, significant battles, deep poverty, serious mental health struggles, and instead of letting those things break her, she systematically used them to craft one of the most compelling and successful personas in modern sports entertainment history.
Okay, let's really unpack this journey then. Our mission here is to trace her path from, like you said, an incredibly challenging New Jersey childhood all the way to becoming a record-setting WWE champion, a New York Times best-selling author, and, critically, a very vocal mental health advocate. We're really looking at how the truth of her life became the ultimate fuel for her performance.
Exactly. And the hook here, I think, is twofold, and it really defines the entire narrative we're going to explore. First, we need to understand the intense, often uncomfortable authenticity of her on-screen character, that whole mentally unstable gimmick.
Right.
And how that related directly to her real-life bipolar disorder diagnosis, which is a connection WWE wasn't even aware of initially, believe it or not.
Wow, okay.
And second, we absolutely have to dissect the enormous story of her highly publicized return to WWE just now in September 2025.
Yeah, after 10 years away.
Over 10 years. And immediately injecting herself into, well, arguably the most personal drama currently rocking the company. It's huge.
So to really understand the drive, you absolutely have to understand the starting line. April Jeanette Mendez, born March 19, 1987, Union City, New Jersey. She's of Puerto Rican descent. And what our sources paint is just this picture of persistent, kind of grinding instability in her formative years.
That's right. And the instability wasn't just, occasional. It was systemic. Her father, he was an automotive engineer, and her mother worked as a homemaker before becoming a home health aide. But the family constantly struggled with financial insecurity.
Right.
And Mendez spoke very openly about the frequent presence of mental illness, which her mother also suffered from, and drug addiction within the family unit. So this created a highly volatile environment.
The accounts of their housing situation are particularly striking. She detailed frequently moving, sometimes living in, cheap motels, or at the most desperate times actually sleeping in the family car because they just couldn't afford consistent rent.
Imagine that.
When you talk about the foundation of ambition, that kind of experience, that constant state of precarity, that must have been the ultimate motivator, right?
It absolutely was. Her aspiration to become a professional wrestler, which cemented itself at the surprisingly young age of 12. Yeah, it wasn't just a fantasy. It was like an escape plan. It was a tangible career path that promised stability, security, and a paycheck large enough to ensure she would never be homeless again.
Okay.
She was inspired by her older brother's deep interest in WWE, and specifically by female wrestlers like Lita, who, combined that athleticism with a really unique personality.
That desire for security really explains why her educational journey was kind of cut short by pragmatic necessity. She graduated from Memorial High School in West New York, New Jersey back in 2005. And initially, she aimed high, attended NYU's prestigious Tisch School of the Arts, majoring in film and television production.
Which is incredible, but she was at Tisch for only 6 months.
6 months, wow.
Yeah, she dropped out because the financial and family pressures were just too overwhelming.
Yeah.
And what did she do immediately after dropping out? She started working full-time.
Right. Not saving for typical college stuff.
No. She wasn't saving for frivolous purchases or, typical college-age fun. She was working specifically, deliberately, to save the money required to afford professional wrestling training.
That's commitment.
That choice NYU dreams versus the wrestling grind, it tells you everything about her commitment to that singular goal of escaping poverty.
And as a small detail, just linking back to those early family influences, our sources note that as an homage to her brother, who served in the U.S. Army, she occasionally incorporated camouflage attire into her wrestling gear, kind of maintaining that connection to her roots despite the chaotic upbringing.
It's those little personal details that really anchor the persona, But the most critical piece of her early history, the one that became her most powerful tool for self-understanding and performance, That was the mental health diagnosis.
Right. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder around age 20, a condition she actually shared with her mother. But the path to that correct diagnosis was incredibly difficult, wasn't it?
Oh, it was dangerous. She'd previously been misdiagnosed with depression. And the treatment based on that misdiagnosis had profoundly adverse effects. She later recounted this period, detailing an overdose on antidepressants and painkillers, which she openly acknowledged was a suicide attempt.
Wow, that's incredibly dark.
It is. But this dark moment, however, became the turning point.
How did that crisis ultimately inform her career? Because that's a huge thing to overcome.
Well, the crisis forced her to seek proper help, which led to the correct diagnosis of bipolar disorder. And this diagnosis, rather than being, a stigma or a secret she had to hide,
Right.
it became the source of her self-acceptance and ultimately her strength. She credits the clarity and understanding derived from the diagnosis and the subsequent treatment with giving her the necessary bravery and perspective to relentlessly pursue and achieve her incredibly demanding career goals.
So that reframing?
Yeah, she famously reframed this adversity, naming her eventual memoir Crazy Is My Superpower. She didn't hide the perceived weakness. She kind of weaponized the authenticity of her experience.
That reframing is so essential because it allows us to contextualize the wild, unpredictable character she would eventually become on television. She had the ambition, she had the financial motivation, and now she had this powerful internal narrative to draw from.
Exactly. All the pieces were falling into place.
Mm-hmm.
So with her focus crystal clear, Mendez began the truly anonymous, back-breaking work of training. She started in March 2007 at a wrestling school near home, trained by the veteran wrestler Jay Lethal.
Okay, Jay Lethal, big name.
Yeah, and this was a direct output of her working full-time. She had the cash saved up, and she immediately put it right into her dream.
And by late 2007, she was already performing on the New Jersey independent circuit as Miss April.
Yep.
The independent scene, I mean, that's where you truly cut your teeth, right? Learning the rhythm and the danger of the ring for, like, minimal pay.
Absolutely. Gas money gigs, basically.
Yeah.
But she quickly rose through the ranks in those regional promotions. She joined Women's Superstars Uncensored WSU in October 2008.
WSU, yeah, that was a key promotion for women's wrestling at the time.
It really was. This wasn't minor leagues. This was where she could build a reputation for seriousness, for being good in the ring.
And she achieved meaningful success there pretty quickly, establishing herself as a credible champion. She captured the WSU Tag Team Championship in February 2009 with Brooke Carter. Then, just a couple months later, April 2009, she and her trainer, Jay Lethal, won the annual WSU National Wrestling Superstars King and Queen of the Ring tournament.
Those are clear markers of readiness. They're resume builders.
Definitely.
But the goal was always the big leagues, right? WWE. So she paid $1,500.
$1,500.
Yeah. And remember, this is money she earned dropping out of NYU to work full-time.
Right, that she scraped together.
Exactly. Paid that just to attend a WWE tryout camp. And that financial gamble, it paid off. In May 2009, she signed her contract and reported immediately to Florida Championship Wrestling, FCW, which was WWE's developmental territory back then.
Okay, so this is the moment Miss April officially becomes AJ Lee. She debuted in FCW that summer, and, well, it sounds like she quickly established herself as a cornerstone of their women's division.
She started accumulating titles almost immediately. February 2010, she won the Queen of FCW title. But what's truly significant about her FCW run is the evolution of her character. After initially being a face, a good guy,
Right.
she began a feud with Naomi Knight over the inaugural FCW Divas Championship. And during that time, she turned heel to villain for a period.
Interesting, showing versatility early on.
Very versatile. And then she defeated Naomi for that FCW Divas Championship in December 2010.
Why was this victory so important in her trajectory? What did it signify?
Well, because it made history within that developmental system. By winning the FCW Divas Championship, she became the first woman ever to win both available women's titles in FCW, the Queen of FCW title, and the Divas Championship.
Oh.
It signaled to the corporate office up in Stanford that she wasn't just, a developmental body. She was a reliable title-winning anchor for the division. And she held that championship until April 2011.
Now, while she was still technically in FCW, the wider WWE audience got their first real glimpse of her via NXT Season 3, right? That started September 2010, back when NXT was structured as that reality competition show.
Yeah, the obstacle courses and weird challenges format.
Exactly.
And this is where the concept of the geek goddess was truly tested on a mainstream platform. She performed as a face, drawing directly from her real-life interests, comic books, anime, video games, to create this nerd character.
Which was pretty refreshing at the time.
Totally. It was genuinely authentic to her, and it set her apart from the traditionally glamorous divas of that era.
During NXT, she also formed that key on-screen relationship with fellow competitor, Caitlyn. That friendship, as we'll definitely see later, became really foundational to her main roster success, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That connection was crucial. Even though she was eliminated in third place on NXT, her main roster call-up followed pretty quickly after that.
So her main roster debut on SmackDown in May 2011 alongside Caitlyn, that was strategic then.
Very strategic. They were immediately branded the Chick Busters and mentored by Natalya.
Right, the veteran.
Yeah. They were positioned as the scrappy, athletic underdogs, contrasting sharply with the established, more powerful teams like, say, Lay Cool or the Divas of Doom later on.
All right.
This early struggle defined her initial year, but crucially, it built that long-term connection with Caitlyn, that storyline investment that would pay huge dividends when she eventually transitioned into her more chaotic persona.
So we see the foundation laid. The economic drive, the personal authenticity of the geek identity, and this key long-term friendship established. Now let's move to the narrative shift that really changed everything for her.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting. Okay, so this period, roughly 2011 to 2013, this is the engine of her rise. AJ Lee stopped being defined solely by tag team wrestling with Caitlyn and started being defined by narrative chaos. She became this indispensable, emotionally unhinged figure who could actually cross over into the male main event scene.
Yeah, she was labeled the crazy chick, and we know now, based on her memoir, that while this was a fictional gimmick, it was definitely informed by her real, at the time unpublicized, bipolar disorder diagnosis. She later stated that because of that reality, she felt she was hiding in plain sight. What did that intense level of maybe unexpected authenticity do to her character's reception? How did fans react?
Well, it gave the character stakes. It felt unpredictable because, for the audience, she wasn't just performing a typical wrestling trope. She was acting out this, calculated instability. Her ascent really began with the Daniel Bryan storyline.
Okay.
Bryan was the villainous World Heavyweight Champion, and their on-screen relationship in late 2011 and early 2012 was defined by his really callous mistreatment of her. AJ was portrayed as overly devoted despite his constant scorn.
Right, he was just awful to her. And this storyline culminated in one of the most famous or infamous and shocking title losses in WrestleMania history. WrestleMania 28, April 1st, 2012, she insisted on kissing Bryan right before his match against Sheamus.
In a moment of distraction, however brief it seemed, it was fatal. Bryan lost the World Heavyweight Championship to Sheamus in a staggering 18 seconds.
18 seconds. Unbelievable.
And Bryan, the villain, immediately blamed AJ Lee and ended the relationship right there in the ring, basically. The subsequent weeks of her trying to reconcile and being just cruelly rejected were absolutely crucial.
Why crucial?
They pushed her over that narrative edge. She started lashing out not just at Bryan, but at her friends, Caitlyn and Natalya. This solidified the unstable, heel-leaning character. She had, seemingly nothing left to lose.
And she didn't exactly mourn for long, did she? She quickly transitioned her chaotic affections towards Bryan's rival, the WWE champion CM Punk, and also towards Kane.
Yeah, Kane too.
Yeah.
The narrative shifted from just being the heartbroken ex-girlfriend to being this agent of disruption.
Right.
At the No Way Out pay-per-view in June 2012, she interfered in a triple threat match involving Punk, Bryan, and Kane. She distracted Kane, helping Punk retain his WWE championship. She became the chaotic variable in every single top-tier feud.
The drama just kept escalating.
Oh, yeah. It peaked when she was announced as the special guest referee for the Punk versus Bryan title match at Money in the Bank. She was mentally manipulating both men.
I remember this.
She even slapped both of them on Raw after Punk rejected her sudden marriage proposal, which came immediately after Bryan had made a counter-proposal.
The psychological warfare was relentless. So at Money in the Bank, she counted Punk's pinfall on Bryan, ensuring Punk's victory, but the ambiguity of her intentions left everyone guessing, right? Like, whose side was she really on?
Exactly. And the very next night, Bryan proposed again, and this time she accepted, setting the stage for one of the greatest acts of televised betrayal in Raw history.
The altar betrayal at Raw 1000, I remember watching that live.
During the exchange of vows, AJ Lee announced that Vince McMahon had just offered her the Raw general manager job. She cited that opportunity as the one true commitment she needed and she left Bryan literally stranded at the altar.
It was spectacular, just a shocking twist that launched her into this powerful, albeit pretty short-lived, authority figure role.
Yeah, her tenure as Raw GM from July to October 2012, it was defined much more by personal vengeance than, say, corporate efficiency.
She really weaponized her power, didn't she?
Totally. She alleged that Bryan only wanted to marry her so he could commit her to a mental institution.
Wow.
And she leveraged her authority to force him to undergo a televised psychological evaluation. She also routinely booked both Bryan and Punk in highly unfavorable matches, using her position purely for emotional payoff and revenge.
It blurred the lines between character and reality even further because her actions felt so intensely personal.
They really did. But, power trips rarely last long in WWE storylines. Her time as GM was curtailed after only a few months.
Why was that?
Well, the storyline reason was she was deemed too childish and got involved in physical altercations with other authority figures, specifically Vicky Guerrero and Paul Heyman. Her emotional instability was cited as the reason for her abrupt removal.
Okay, so that cleared the way for her most impactful and sustained heel turn. Right.
Exactly. She stepped down amid this manufactured scandal storyline involving John Cena, an alleged affair, which she vehemently denied. But the true shift came at the TLC pay-per-view in December 2012.
Ah, the ladder match.
That was the defining moment of her alliance with Dolph Ziggler. Ziggler was feuding with Cena over the Money in the Bank contract. AJ interfered, pushing Cena off the ladder, costing him the match, and turning her into a definitive villain, a calculated betrayer.
And she aligned with Ziggler then.
Right away. Introduced the menacing bodyguard Big E Langston, too. When justifying the betrayal, she claimed Cena had toyed with her emotions, so she helped Ziggler break him.
This trio, AJ, Ziggler, and Langston, became a pretty central force for a while.
They really did. And she then assisted Ziggler in successfully cashing in that Money in the Bank contract to win the World Heavyweight Championship in April 2013. That cemented her as the catalyst for male main event success. She had successfully navigated her way into the very highest echelon of the company, not necessarily by being the best wrestler at that point, but by being the best, most unhinged storyteller.
A master manipulator.
Absolutely.
So having dominated the narrative side of the main event scene, the stage was now perfectly set for her to pivot back to the women's division and assert, well, physical dominance this time.
Exactly.
And she accomplished this pretty swiftly, winning a battle royal in April 2013 to become the #1 contender for the Divas Championship.
And this is where that previous storyline investment paid off immensely. She leveraged her history with Caitlyn, turning their genuine on-screen friendship, that whole Chickbusters connection, into this deeply personal, really twisted psychological feud.
Ah, the secret admirer storyline. I remember that. Caitlyn received gifts and messages.
Right, building up all this hope and emotion.
And the payoff was brutal.
It was. The secret admirer turned out to be Big E Langston, acting under AJ's direction. AJ revealed the whole deceit in this shocking segment, designed purely to mock and humiliate Caitlyn, leaving her completely devastated.
That was masterclass heel psychology. Using that intimacy to inflict maximum damage, it perfectly cemented her character as manipulative and, deeply personal in her attacks.
It really did. And it led directly to her winning her first Divas Championship from Caitlyn at the Payback pay-per-view in June 2013. And this kicked off a truly historic run.
How historic?
She held that title for 295 consecutive days.
Wow, 295 days.
At the time, that set a monumental new record for the longest Divas Championship reign. Now, we should note that while that individual record was later surpassed by Nikki Bella, the sheer longevity of AJ's initial reign really solidified her as the cornerstone of the division.
Okay. And during this reign, she paired up with Tamina Snuka as her bodyguard in September 2013, creating this new dominant pairing.
Right. Added muscle.
But maybe the most memorable aspect of this period was her highly publicized on-screen feud with the cast of EA Network's newly launched reality show, Total Divas.
Oh, this feud was genius because it was basically meta commentary. AJ, the lifelong wrestling fan who fought her way out of poverty, positioned herself as the true professional wrestler, defending the integrity of the division against the supposed reality stars.
Right, the pipe bombshell promo.
Exactly. She interrupted the cast on Raw with this scathing promo, just tearing them down, vowing to defeat every single member of the cast, Brie Bella, Naomi, Natalya, all of them, in defense of her title and what it represented.
And that angle resonated fiercely with a lot of wrestling fans who, maybe, viewed the reality show as diluting the athletic nature of the women's division. AJ became the anti-Hollywood champion.
It provided a necessary thematic anchor for her reign. She carried that rivalry through the rest of 2013, remaining the champion despite facing the entire cast in various matches. And her reign achieved a major corporate milestone at WrestleMania XXX.
That's right. She successfully defended the Divas Championship in that big 14-woman match. Vicky Guerrero Invitational, I think it was called.
Yep. And crucially, this was the very first time the Divas Championship was ever actually contested for at WWE's flagship event, WrestleMania.
That's a huge deal. That run fundamentally elevated the belt's standing.
Absolutely. But, dominance usually has a sharp end in wrestling.
Yeah.
The night right after WrestleMania XXX, she lost the title to the debuting Paige.
Paige's debut, yeah. Big shock.
Huge shock. It ended that 295-day reign. AJ took a short time off after that, but the rivalry was far from over.
No kidding. She returned in June 2014 and immediately challenged and defeated Paige to win the title right back. And this began that bizarre, often confusing frenemies rivalry, the facetious best friends thing.
Yeah, marked by unprovoked attacks and backhanded compliments. It was weird, but compelling.
They traded the title multiple times, which seemed like a clear sign that WWE viewed them as the two pillars of the division at that point.
Definitely. Her third and final title win came at Night of Champions in September 2014, making her a record-tying 3-time Divas Champion, matching the record previously set by Eve Torres.
So when you look at her cumulative success, even beyond that single reign record, she still holds the overall record for the longest total time as Divas Champion, a staggering 406 days across those 3 reigns.
Yep, 406 days total.
She was, statistically and narratively, the most dominant female performer of that entire era.
No question. However, by late 2014, her time in the ring was clearly coming towards an end. She took time off primarily to address a pre-existing neck injury, which, as we know now, became a defining factor in her retirement.
But before she left, she had that massive, really career-defining moment of public advocacy in February 2015.
The tweet.
The tweet heard around the wrestling world. This was the moment she publicly criticized WWE executive Stephanie McMahon on social media regarding the unequal treatment of the company's female wrestlers.
This was a genuinely risky, politically charged move. I mean, think about the timing.
Yeah.
She publicly called out the massive disparity, pointing out that female wrestlers received only a fraction of the wages and significantly less screen time than their male counterparts, despite generating record merchandise sales and sometimes top-rated segments. And this was just a few months after her husband, CM Punk, had his incredibly contentious exit from the company.
Right, the atmosphere must have been tense.
Extremely. Her speaking out like that put her own professional standing right on the line.
Yet the company, perhaps surprisingly, actually acknowledged it. Both Stephanie and even WWE Chairman Vince McMahon publicly addressed her comments.
They did. And her criticism is widely regarded in the industry today as one of the pivotal, foundational moments that really paved the way for the subsequent corporate push of the women's evolution or revolution.
So she used her status as champion.
Yeah, she used her status, her platform, her political capital, essentially for the benefit of the entire division. It was brave.
Her final match was fittingly at WrestleMania 31 in March 2015. She teamed with her former rival Paige
Full circle.
to defeat the Bella Twins, symbolically kind of passing the torch and closing out that era. She officially retired just a few days later, April 3rd, 2015.
And her memoir later confirmed the reasons for stepping away. Primarily, permanent damage to her cervical spine meant she physically could not continue wrestling at that demanding pace anymore.
Makes sense.
She also stated she felt her goals in wrestling were completely fulfilled. And yes, she admitted she felt deeply caught in the middle following CM Punk's controversial 2014 departure, though she did manage to continue working for over a year after he left, which is pretty remarkable in itself.
Yeah, navigating that must have been incredibly difficult.
I can only imagine.
So she closed the book on her wrestling career, a world she fought so incredibly hard to enter and then conquer, and almost immediately opened a new chapter. She pivoted to a field she'd actually studied briefly way back at NYU, writing and creative production. And this transition wasn't just like a minor success. It was pretty monumental, wasn't it?
So absolutely. Her 2017 memoir, Crazy Is My Superpower, How I Triumphed by Breaking Bones, Breaking Hearts, and Breaking the Rules. It was an immediate commercial and critical success.
And that title, right back to reframing the bipolar diagnosis.
Directly addressed it. And it proved the mainstream appetite for her story. It debuted at number 10 on the New York Times bestseller list for hardcover nonfiction.
Number 10, that's huge.
It really is. She described writing as very much the next chapter of her life, proving her storytelling instincts extended far beyond just the wrestling ring.
And she didn't just stop with the memoir, right? She moved into other creative ventures.
No, she kept going. In 2020, she co-founded Scrappy Heart Productions with the actress Emmy Garcia.
Yeah.
And the core mission of their company is vital. It's dedicated to elevating diverse female voices through high-quality genre storytelling, which, when you think about it, is a direct, thematic continuation of the authenticity she championed in her wrestling career.
That's a great point, and that partnership has been pretty prolific. They co-wrote multiple comic book series, linking her right back to her geek goddess roots.
Yep. They worked on titles like GLOW versus The Babyface, tying into the wrestling theme again, and a successful run on Dungeons & Dragons, at the spine of the world. She even contributed a story to DC Comics' prestigious Wonder Woman, Black and Gold anthology.
So this established her credibility not just as, a celebrity attaching her name to something, but as a genuine creative force in the comic book space.
Absolutely. And she successfully moved into feature screenwriting as well. She, Garcia, and John Sweatman co-wrote the screenplay for the 2022 Netflix martial arts film Blade of the 47 Ronin.
I saw that.
Plus, her original pilot script, Home, made the Blacklist's inaugural Latinx TV list in 2020, which, getting on the blacklist indicates she's succeeding at the highest level of Hollywood gatekeepers. She's taken seriously as a writer.
Wow. So concurrently with all this creative work, she also cemented her role as a dedicated advocate, especially for mental health.
Yes. Having bravely shared her own experience with bipolar disorder in her book, she served as an ambassador for major mental health awareness organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness and NMI and the JED Foundation. She also championed animal welfare with the ASPCA.
And NMI specifically recognized her advocacy work, didn't they?
They did. They honored her with their Multicultural Outreach Award in 2018, emphasizing her success in destigmatizing mental health discussions, especially within diverse communities. She really put her platform to good use there.
Definitely. Then, in 2021, she made a brief, kind of unexpected return to the wrestling world, but in an executive role.
Yeah, she joined WSW Women of Wrestling as an executive producer, working alongside the owner Jeannie Buss, who also owns the LA Lakers.
Right, big connection there.
It was a significant strategic move, actually. It coincided with WOW signing a major distribution deal with Viacom-CBS, suggesting she was involved in some pretty big corporate growth plans for them.
And she even did some commentary for them.
She did. Provided color commentary for WOW's syndicated weekly television program starting in September 2022, but the executive role was temporary. She departed WOW in August 2023 upon the completion of her season-long contract.
Which, of course, left the door wide open for speculation on a potential in-ring return somewhere.
And that speculation just exploded into reality in September 2025. After over 10 years away from a WWE ring, April Jeanette Mendez as AJ Lee returned on SmackDown.
This is arguably one of the most significant unannounced returns in modern wrestling history, just purely for the time elapsed and the circumstances involved.
Absolutely. And she didn't come back for just a nostalgia pop, did she?
Not at all. She came back for war. She immediately confronted and attacked Becky Lynch. And the context here is so critical. This was a direct escalation of that highly publicized, ongoing, very personal feud involving her husband, CM Punk, and Lynch's husband, Seth Rollins.
Right. The personal, messy drama that defined so much of her early career has now, ironically, defined her unexpected comeback.
We probably need to unpack that core conflict just a bit for the listener because it's so central to her return.
Yeah, definitely. The CM Punk versus Seth Rollins rivalry is intensely personal. It stems from years of animosity, public insults, professional disagreements, real-life friction bleeding onto the screen.
Okay.
And because both men are married to top-tier female competitors, AJ Lee and Becky Lynch, respectively, the rivalry naturally spilled over into the mixed tag team realm.
Which allows AJ Lee to step right into the white-hot center of the company's main narrative without needing a lengthy build-up. She's immediately relevant because of her history, yes, but also because of her marriage.
It's instant main event status. And she proved her performance ability was still there immediately. At the recent WrestlePalooza show, September 20th, 2025, AJ and CM Punk defeated Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins in that huge mixed tag team match.
And the finish was important too, wasn't it?
Crucial. That win wasn't just a win. AJ secured the victory by forcing Becky Lynch, arguably the top woman in the company right now, to submit.
To the Black Widow.
The Black Widow. That specific detail confirms her immediate credibility. She didn't rely on outside interference or some cheap shot. She defeated the current top woman cleanly with her signature submission maneuver. It sent a message. She is back at the highest competitive level and is a direct, immediate threat to the entire women's division.
The landscape just changed dramatically.
That's right.
So let's take a moment just to review the key elements that really coalesce to make her persona so distinct and memorable, because it's such a perfect blend of calculated strategy and genuine self-expression.
It really is.
First off, the name itself, A.J. Lee.
Yeah, the Lee in her ring name wasn't random. It was a deliberate nod to her inner interests, taken from Wendy Lee, who's a prominent voice actress known for her work in anime, specifically Cowboy Bebop.
Ah, okay. So even the name integrated that nerd culture aspect.
Right from the start,
Yeah.
it immediately differentiated her from her peers.
And her look, too, was such a deliberate choice, standing out completely against the traditional divas aesthetic of that time.
Absolutely. She intentionally branded herself as a tomboy. Her ring attire was utilitarian but also distinctive. Just a t-shirt, jean shorts, and those iconic Chuck Taylor All-Stars.
Her chucks, yeah.
She stated that her goal was not only comfort, but also to create a distinctive, easily replicable look that fans, especially young women and girls, could use for cosplay. So she was actively appealing to the fandom community she herself belonged to.
Smart branding. And her signature move also tied directly into that comic book interest she loved so much.
Yep. Her finishing maneuver was the Black Widow submission, which is technically an octopus hold.
Yeah.
But the naming reference is explicit. It's named after the Marvel Comics character, Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow.
Okay.
This constantly reinforced the image of the quirky, dangerous comic book enthusiast. And visually, you just can't forget her constant skipping.
The skipping entrance.
It was her signature taunt, emphasizing her unpredictable, almost childlike, but also chaotic energy as she entered the ring or circled an opponent.
In terms of professional accolades, her dominance wasn't just a narrative choice by WWE. It was recognized by the industry itself year after year, wasn't it?
Oh, definitely. The Pro Wrestling Illustrated, or PWI Awards, really confirmed her status as the face of the division during her peak. She won the PWI Woman of the Year award for 3 consecutive years, 2012, 2013, and 2014.
3 years in a row.
A three-peat. That's an extraordinary marker of consistency and impact.
And we keep coming back to those championship records because they're so significant. 3 WWE Divas Championship reigns, tying the record set by Eve Torres. And her record, 406 cumulative days as champion, still the longest overall reign time.
Still stands. She was also honored with the Slammy Award for Diva of the Year twice, in 2012 and again in 2014.
And for the ultimate geek goddess achievement, she holds that unique Guinness World Record.
Right. In 2012, she became the first female winner of WWE's annual Superstar Challenge video game tournament, playing WWE 12.
That achievement just perfectly encapsulates her unique persona, a dominant champion in the ring who still held fast to her inner nerd identity and excelled there too.
Exactly. And finally, maybe the most intensely personal detail that shows her devotion to the craft, beyond her marriage to Phillip Brooks, CM Punk, in June 2014.
Yeah.
It's the tattoo on the back of her neck.
Yeah.
Displays the numerical date of her very first WWE Divas Championship win, 6/16/13, written out in tally marks.
Wow. A permanent testament to achieving that singular lifelong dream she chased since she was 12.
It really speaks to the seriousness with which she approached this goal. Like we said, this wasn't a hobby for her. This was her redemption from poverty, the thing she sacrificed everything for.
Incredible journey. Hashtag outro.
So when we really connect the entire arc of April Jeanette Mendez, what we see is a story built on radical authenticity and calculated risk. She took the intense, often painful reality of her mental health struggles and the genuine, sometimes marginalized honesty of her geek interests, and she leveraged them.
She didn't hide them.
No, she didn't apologize for them. She used them to craft this persona that resonated deeply enough to shatter wrestling records and then create a successful, multifaceted career pivot into writing, advocacy, and even executive production. It's quite remarkable.
It really is a complete story, but now, with the 2025 return, it's suddenly an unfolding one again. We know her expertise is kind of divided equally between highly effective storytelling as a New York Times bestselling author and comic book writer and intensely effective in-ring performance. She understands narrative structure better than most, both inside and outside the ropes.
Which raises a really important question for you, the listener, to think about. Given that her current return narrative is so deeply rooted in real-life context, the emotional stakes of her husband's ongoing conflict, How will this new decade-later chapter influence the next great story she writes?
Ooh, interesting question.
Will the tension and conflict of this current run become the subject of her next memoir? Maybe. Or perhaps a screenplay. What new superpowers, if you will this latest chapter of conflict and high-stakes performance reveal about the lasting power of her unique brand of chaotic authenticity?
Something to definitely keep an eye on, both in the ring and maybe on the bestseller list down the line.
For sure. It's far from over.